Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming tonight on this beautiful summer afternoon. And we are really pleased to be collaborating with the Science Museum and the Shukhov Foundation for this particular display. In a way, this exhibition has been really a natural extension of our exhibition program. And if any of you were here to see last winter the Utopia Limited exhibition, we collaborated also with Henry Milner on reconstructing iconic constructivist works. Thank you, Lutz. And now we have with us Vladimir Shukhov, who is a great-grandson, actually, of the tower's creator. And he's also an architect who's currently working at Foster & Partners.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. From myself and from my father, president of Shukhov Tower Foundation, also Vladimir Shukhov. I'd like to thank everyone for coming. I think in this time when tower in Moscow is under the threat of demolishing, it's really important that people are paying attention and trying to make this situation so people hear about this, so people know what's happening. That's what's important. I have a short presentation which basically Xenia, she already kind of partially touched the subject, but I want to go a bit more further in and talk about actual creator of the tower and few aspects, basically fields. It's far away from being all the fields he was working on, but just a few. They call Vladimir Shukhov Leonardo da Vinci of Russia, and it's not because he was just a talented engineer and architect. It's because he was, well, as you can see, universal genius. He was talented in every field, every subject he was ever getting into, and not just achieving some results. He was always achieving top results in every subject. So let's start with something which is probably mostly familiar to all of you, Shukhov Towers. I like this slide because it represents what is digrid hyperboloid actually is. So when you take two rings, connect them with with the tubes, and just twist around, you get this amazing structure, amazing, beautiful structure, which is actually, if you think, it's so simple and so beautiful at the same time. Okay, I'm going to talk about 3 towers today. First one is tower from fair in 1896 in Nizhny Novgorod. Basically, after returning, as Xenia mentioned, from Philadelphia, where he actually met Alexander Barry. They coming back together to Russia. They started a company, and this exhibition was a chance basically to bring a company to a new level, to show people what they actually do. And along with the pavilions, which you saw from Xenia, Shukhov built this tower, which it's not just a tower. First of all, it's the first Shukhov tower. And besides this, it's the first hyperboloid structure in the world. It was 34, if I'm not mistaken, meters high, with a water tank with 25 meters high, which had a capacity of 100,000 liters, which could supply the whole fair with water. And obviously, his pavilions and the tower became basically the main point of interest of the whole exhibition. There were so many articles in magazines all over the world about this. People were fascinating how such light and beautiful construction can also carry such weight on top. Now the tower, hiding behind the back. Basically, what happened after the exhibition, the tower was bought by famous, we can call him art patron, Yuri Nechayev-Maltsev, who was always interested in art and science and engineering architecture. So he bought it, and he they transported it to his estate in Bilibine, where actually the tower stays at the current time. Basically, what's also interesting about the tower is the single section hyperboloid, where the Moscow tower has 6 sections. This is just a single section hyperboloid. Currently, it's under state protection, so hopefully this tower will live a long life. Next one is a really interesting Shukhov's project in Ukraine. It was 2 lighthouses. This one, which is the big one, I think it's 68 meters, 64 meters high lighthouse. And what's also interesting, it's also single section, 1 section hyperboloid. It has this basically tube running within the tower, and you have this, if you can see, stairs inside. And what's also interesting, basically this tube, it doesn't really sit on the ground. So the whole weight of this and the people walking around, it's spread across the tower structure. There was interesting story about, I don't have a picture of the second lighthouse, but it's slightly shorter. And it was an interesting story because at the time of construction, Shukhov wasn't there. And then when they finished the second lighthouse, it appears that it stands in slightly wrong position. So because you have 2 lighthouses and they should align. And what happened, Shukhov came to Ukraine. And what they done, basically, if you can see, lighthouse is already base. They built a bigger island around it. They placed a few rails. They placed a small lighthouse on the rails, and then they shifted it. So basically, it tells us how, even though it's a massive structure, how easily you can adjust it and move it. Without causing any damage to the construction. Okay, all right. This is a last tower in Nizhny Novgorod on Oka River. It used to be 3 pairs, so basically 6 towers with the different heights. This was the tallest, basically the 2 towers, tallest ones. It's also interesting because the 2 previous towers that you've seen, these towers were built before Moscow Tower. This one is built in 1929, which is after, so you can see similarities. But this one has 5 sections. And what is also important to mention is Shukhov has incredible amount of towers he built, basically, it's hundreds. But every single tower he built, he never repeated himself. All calculations, he started from scratch, basically. So if you take all the towers, you will never find the same one. All different. So this one is 128 meters high tower. Unfortunately, her sister was demolished quite recently in 2005 for scrap metal. But this one hopefully will have a chance to live. Okay, a few more pictures. Okay, now we come into a different subject, which is roofs. I selected 2. One is the glass roof of the central post office in Moscow, which at the time was had the biggest hall in Europe. So basically, it was 45 by 35 meters. And also the way the way Shukhov designed this roof was quite interesting because it had 3 layers. First of all, you had to care about snow loadings. Whether in Europe, you can see similar things in Europe, but here probably the snow problem is a bit less than in Russia. So you had to deal with this. And then also, because of the temperature difference, you had to have a second layer to keep the temperature. So basically what we can say is that this roof represents what now we call double glazing, which we use in our houses, just in a bigger scale. And quite fascinating story that apparently up to 2002 or something like this, there was a man who lived there in the roof, and his job was to basically repair every single window, just check if roof is fine. And basically the thing is, the distance between layers is like 1 meter, maybe a bit less. So basically he was just traveling around within, so kind of like a spirit of the building. Okay, the next one is slightly different in terms of construction. It was probably, I think, the last big project of Shukhov before revolution. At the time, the name of the railway station was Bryansky, now it's Kievsky train station. It has 48 meters span, 30 meters high, and I think 230 meters in length. So it was the biggest in Russia. Again, unfortunately, in the beginning of 2001 or 2002, they decided to refurbish it. And what happened? They basically changed all the sections except 4 of them to basically just the new ones. And when you go there, you can tell the difference. Okay, another interesting subject which not so many people know about. It's oil and Shukhov's influence in this area. In 1878, Shukhov moved to Baku, and there he was working on a different project. One of them was he built the first pipeline in Russia, and then there was so many more after this. And this is probably the most important thing, an achievement in the oil industry. He was the one to invent thermal oil cracking, which I don't know if someone knows what it is. It's basically how you transform natural oil to the petrol. And it's the same system they use now, basically to get from a natural product something that you use to fill your car. So this was invented by Shukhov somewhere in the end of 70s, 1879. Again, he was the first one to build first oil tankers in Russia. They were built in Saratov and, not mistaken, in Volgograd. Again, it was between 1885, 1895, so basically these years. He built oil storage tanks, again storing oil, and two interesting aspects about this. One, obviously because it was like a massive production, you had to store oil, so it was plenty of these storage tanks. And the builders and engineers at the place, they were a bit afraid to work with this, and they didn't know. So he was the person who actually taught them how to, just by using drawings without him being there, how to build from the metal sheets these structures. And what also interesting, he never built a concrete basement, what we would probably expect. They always sit on the ground. For some reason, it's better even for the oil and for the structure. It's the same way they do now in Emirates, and completely the same system. Okay, another subject, warfare. And I'll start with this one, this small picture. Basically, what happened in 1910, he received the order to construct sea mines, 40 different types of sea mines. And on this project, he worked with an amazing person, Alexander Kolchak, admiral, who played a significant role in Russian history. They worked together on this one, and as I say, after the project was finished, both of them, they developed a great respect for each other. This is, actually I found this while preparing this presentation. It's really interesting thing. In 1916, he was asked to design a platform for a gun, for 6-inch guns, heavy guns. And what he did something which we can call probably a first transformer. Because this carriage will transform, basically each wheel of the carriage will transform to the platform. So basically from one carriage you got 2 platforms, which first of all you need, because at that time they were still using horses, so you need 4 or 5 times less horses. Plus it's really easy to assemble, really easy to transport. Okay, this is something that Xenia already mentioned today, but I would like to go again a bit slightly in more details. In 1931, there was earthquake in Samarkand, and the minaret of Ulubek Madrasa started to tilt, and it was happening really quickly, and the decision had to be taken really just within the days, more or less. And people had different proposals. Some people proposed that maybe it's better just to disassemble everything brick by brick. Well, that's kind of a remind us of what's happening now with the Shukhov Tower in Moscow, brick by brick, and then reassemble it. Some people said, no, let's basically pull it on top and then just shift it. And then they decided to ask Shukhov what is his vision on this. And his proposal was very surprising for everyone, very different from other people proposed. Basically what he suggested, he said, why would you pull it up and use mechanism and machines, whether you can just bring it down under its own weight. So basically what he did, he moved it horizontally, center of gravity, keeping on the same line, and just placed on that. And that's why, the same picture that Xenia used, that people there, they're still grateful for it, and because a really important monument, and then part of their history, which actually dated, I think, from 15th century. And one other subject, which some people will call it hobby, I think it's actually quite serious part of his life, photography. He was really passionate photographer, and basically there's an archive, quite significant archive of his picture he took. And also we should remember that at that time, photography wasn't that easy process. Even now, when you tell someone you use film camera, people will look a bit suspicious to you. But at that time, you had to use a glass, basically, and then every next shot you take, you need to exchange the glass, and really complicated developing process. And what is interesting, he was always, it's not that he was just taking pictures of everything he saw. He was trying to find interesting topics, interesting subjects. For example, in this one, yes, you have basically really interesting action going on. Plus, well, a bit cut there, you have a construction there, you have a construction of the ship, and then the way the whole picture is set, proportions. He always thought about it as well. This is pretty much it, but I would like to say a few more things. Why he achieved all of this. Because from my point of view, he was the person who was really interested in life, curious, interested in every single aspect of life in general. Every little detail. He basically, they were inspiring him to do something new. That's why he studied medicine, for example, to learn how human body works. Because I presume that some of his structures, it came from there. Maybe some molecular systems or something like this. So, thank you very much.
And our final guest of the evening is Henry Milner, the maker of the model of the tower that you can see here at GRAD. And this is going to be a slightly different format, so Henry's going to answer all your burning questions about how he went about making a model. So maybe if I can start us off, I wanted to ask, you've worked on many different projects involving sort of the Soviet avant-garde, and I wonder how this was similar or maybe different from the other projects that you've worked on, like the Melnikov and the Tatlin.
So firstly, thank you very much for attending, and I feel very humble to be a part of this with such amazing speeches from such lofty individuals. I'm a maker, I'm not an academic in any way whatsoever, so please don't ask me historical questions. But what I do like to do is just to immerse myself in projects that I find quite exciting, and a lot of those do seem to be from the constructivist era. I think young Vladimir here has just shown us how amazing his ancestry is, and to be privileged to be able to work on some of these pieces is something which is very rare, I think, in maybe modern London. Perhaps there's something slightly strange, and again, I'm not an academic, about that particular time period in Russia, in that people were designated tasks, and this kind of creativity occurred. But I can't afford just to build things just on a whim. So it's amazing when institutions like the Science Museum show an interest in showing pieces, and then very important archival organisations such as the Shukhov Tower Foundation go ahead and sponsor things. It just allows for these things to happen, and that's an enormous privilege for me. Some of me running around in the workshop here, but it gives you a little bit of an idea onto how I go about building things. Lutz is a bit of a romantic, and I like it, but it is true, you do have to immerse yourself in what's going on. So if we just talk about this particular project, the Shabolovka Tower by Shukhov, there's really no point in just starting in one corner and trying to finish at the top. You need to learn a lot about it, and you really need to understand it fully. And I'm not the author of this architecture. This incredible man was the author. But I've done a few projects lately where people are quite interested in the actual reconstruction. Reconstruction used to be a bit of a kind of a negative kind of a word, or kind of like, is it reconstruction? Is it fake? Is it when it actually referred more to the art industry? But now I seem to find that a lot of people embrace it, and more so there's the huge story behind the actual creation, because it actually brings out very interesting facts which are just not documented by anyone. And I have a couple of facts before I go to the question, sorry. It's not a speech, don't worry. So, for example, I could highlight something which only comes about by building something. When you're doing a facsimile or a scale production, you have to get it right, and you have to understand the original constructs. So just to everybody's left, there's the original maquette that I took down to Tilly at the Science Museum, just to kind of gauge an idea of how the shapes looked. Would they be awkward to get in and clean? So the Science Museum kind of had an understanding of what was going to be in creation. And if I can, sorry, if I could just show you just one thing which I learned, and then there's a myriad of them, but I'll just point out one. These members, diagonal, the major players in the hypercolloid, hit the ring at the top of a section, parallel with the ring. You get me? This surface is parallel. And then they come down, so say that's 12 o'clock, and that's like 11 o'clock. And this one hits here about 1 o'clock. But because it's going straight, there's no way it's hitting here, parallel. And it's as I make this maquette that I learned that for the first time, which is quite exciting. It also means that I have to twist every single member. You've got a chance to come out quite considerably, twist the steel around, so that they actually hit. But those are the kind of things that I think occur from reconstruction. You actually learn quite a lot about things. Anyway, I'm more than happy to answer anybody's questions.